We're just a few days away from the horrible bombings on Palm Sunday there in Tanta and Alexandria. President Sisi has really reached out to the Christians, unlike his predecessor, Mohammed Morsi, for sure. What are the challenges that he faces to protect the Christians, and how would you describe their situation right now in Egypt?
Well, you know, our hearts go out to all the Christians that are in Egypt, both Coptic and evangelical, who are struggling right now, grieving the loss of their fellow brothers and sisters, and as well as caring for these wounded and traumatized. But these were not isolated incidents. It's important to note that the Islamic State, which claimed credit for these two suicide bombings against these two churches, they have made it clear in recent months that they are going to target Egyptian Christians and to try to destabilize the Egyptian government and, quote, liberate, unquote, Cairo. That's the new ISIS objective. They certainly want to get Jordan, but they also want to get Egypt. And I think it's important for us to put these terrorist attacks in context. To his credit, President El-Sisi has reached out to the Christian community, not just because of a response to an emergency, but from the beginning, when he came to power in the summer of 2014, he made a trip to Rome to meet with Pope Francis. He has met multiple times with the Coptic Pope in Cairo. He is helping rebuild churches in Egypt that have been damaged or destroyed by terrorism. Which is
unprecedented.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, there's a new law in Egypt that allows the building and the modification on churches in Egypt. There are criticisms that it's not being well implemented yet, but I think you'd have to say the President El-Sisi is trying to show solidarity with the Christian community, of which maybe 1 in 10 Egyptians describe themselves as followers of Jesus Christ. So that's not an insignificant number in a country of 93 million people. El-Sisi is treating them as Egyptians, not as a minority group, but as valued members of the society. We haven't seen that under Morsi. We didn't really see this under Mubarak. Right. So this is impressive, and it should be encouraged. And I mean, El-Sisi should be encouraged as opposed to just constantly attacked for not yet doing enough. Is there more that he should be doing? Absolutely. But I think we got to start with saying, wow, this is so much different if the baseline was the Muslim Brotherhood.
Another thing you mentioned in your article is that the economy has rebounded since El-Sisi took over, and it's real critical, I guess, as one of the biggest Arab nations in the Middle East, if not the biggest nation, that it does rebound and it gets the kind of support from the United States that it needs.
Well, one of the things that really struck me out of this meeting with President El-Sisi is that he is essentially trying to rebrand Egypt from what people perceive it in the last few years: chaotic, tumultuous, terror-strewn, and with this terrible relationship with the United States, and thus drifting into the Russian quarter. El-Sisi is clearly trying to rebrand Egypt as a friend of the United States, as a friend of the West, as a friend of Israel. The security cooperation is quite extraordinary, actually, and as a place that's open for business. During the Arab Spring in 2011, the Egyptian economy contracted by 4% in 1 year. Even under Morsi, growth was hovering 0 to 2% at best. Last year, it grew more than 4.5%, and we're seeing projections that in the next couple of years it could be growing at close to 6%. Now, the challenge for El-Sisi is that he's got so many young people coming into the job market every quarter, every year, and he's got to be creating jobs for them. Not literally him. He's got to create the environment that the private sector is creating jobs. So that requires security, stability, a healthy relationship with the United States and the West in terms of banking, in terms of the IMF, and certainly U.S. aid, but then creating a climate that businesses want to invest there. And we are seeing, as I write in the Jerusalem Post, we are seeing companies beginning to invest billions of dollars. So I think that's encouraging, but a lot more needs to be done.